Hello, good afternoon, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the season finale of the one and only League Zero Inca Salsa Formula Series Season 12, as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing, and powered by Inca Salsa. The scene is set. It is time for round 6 of 6. Christmas is just around the corner, and with it, the end of 2024. But as we've made our way to our final destination for this championship campaign, we're here at the one and only Autodromo Jose Carlos Pache, also known as Interlagos in short, here in São Paulo, Brazil. A circuit that is no stranger to absolutely titanic title deciders, whether it be in Brazilian stock car or perhaps most memorably in Formula 1. It is a circuit where its variety and also its fierce nature as it weaves and winds its way through the local hilly terrain makes it a circuit that cannot be underestimated, and there is always the threat of weather. But whilst the weather is looking cloudy today and perhaps we do not have too much rain in the forecast, one thing that is definitely uncertain is who is going to be coming out on top in our final 2 races of the season, and that's why we're here to resolve the big questions of the season. Who will be your driver's champion? Will it be Jaden Calloway, the defending champion, or will it be his teammate from Squid Game Racing but main rival over the course of this season, that being none other than, of course, what is Adam Merchant? And meanwhile, elsewhere in terms of those big questions in the Teams Championship, where maybe Squid Game Racing have wrapped things up with regards to the Teams Championship last time out at Silverstone, we have the big question of who will be finishing at P2 of all of our teams. Will it be Avanti Autosport? Will it be one of their rivals? Well, we'll just have to wait and see, because Kraken Racing will be keen to take the title, as would Blue Passport Motorsport, but any of them could take it over the course of the remaining 2 races of the season. But as we welcome you all to this live broadcast, albeit a post-round broadcast from the circuit side, you may be wondering, what exactly is a post-round broadcast? Well, this broadcast is live as we're presenting it to you now, but the race itself you're going to be seeing on screen today is not. That race had occurred as of early this week, back on what was Thursday the 19th of December, bringing it to you as if it were live today. And that means we do ask there's no potential spoilers in our respective chats. You could be tuning into this broadcast via one or 2 media platforms of your viewing pleasure. Firstly, you could be tuning in right now via YouTube at youtube.com and search for what is TX141 at TX, all 30 Paul Walsh. And welcome to you guys and girls that are tuning in via YouTube, including none other than what we can see is Luke Walsh. And a good afternoon to you from Northern California, Luke. Well, I believe, in fact, it's still the morning there in California if I get my time zones correct. And we could also be tuning in right now via Twitch at twitch.tv/TX141. And welcome to you guys and girls tuning in via Twitch. And, well, who is TX141? Who is Paul Walsh, I hear you ask? Well, allow me to introduce myself as your host and commentator this season. My name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And I will bring you all of your racing action over the course of today to wrap up the championship campaign. And speaking of our schedule for today, times in Greenwich Mean Time, that's GMT, or Universal Coordinate Time, UTC. As we can see, in just under 12 minutes time, we're going into our final qualifying session of the season, 15 minutes in duration, all the drivers out of the circuit, looking to give it their utmost to take the final pole position on the grid for this season, after which we'll head to the first of our two races. Race number 11 of the season, firstly, the 10-lap sprint at what will be 5:30 this afternoon, and after that we'll take a brief breather before returning to the grid at approximately what will be 10 to 6 this evening for our 32-lap feature race to bring the curtain down on what has been an absolutely phenomenal season, no doubt about it. And, well, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look at that calendar as it has all played out, and as we can see, we're now into the final throes of the championship campaign. It's crazy to think we began all the way back on the 7th of November 2024 with the circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. It seems like a far cry away when we visited the Belgian Grand Prix circuit, but we kicked off with a bang there, and that thing continued all the way through the first half of the season. We made our way to neighbouring Italy for the Autodromo Nacional Monza on the 14th of November, and then to the Red Bull Ring on the 21st of November, the Austrian circuit there, bringing us together some absolutely scintillating stuff when it came to close-knit battling, with many a 2 or 3 wide over the course of its straights, and also for its sweeping corners. Then we had our mid-season break week for the purposes of Thanksgiving, and after drivers have celebrated Thanksgiving, had plenty of turkey to go with it, well, it was back to racing in round number 4 of the championship on the 5th of December at the Long Beach Street Circuit. And now our sole visit to the United States for this season was one to remember, with many a major incident around the streets of Long Beach City in the US state of California. We also got to see some absolutely spectacular racing over the course of 2 races. And last time out in the United Kingdom on the 12th of December, we got to see some absolutely brilliant fighting action at the very front between Adam Merchant and Jaden Callaway, the title titans, absolutely giving it everything out there, and, well, they are very finely poised coming into today. But, of course, today it is the Autodromo Jose Carlos Pache, and one of them will be crowned your champion. Indeed, we've got many a run-up also to crown in that Drivers' Championship, and coming straight into our Drivers' Championship then, how is the scene set after 5 rounds? Well, as we can see, what we have at the very top is Jaden Callaway leading by only 4 points. However, an intriguing twist of fate, Jaden Callaway is not here today. He's not been able to make it to the Interlagos circuit. And what it means that Adam Merchant currently just needs to finish the races today. And if he finishes the race and doesn't pick up any penalties, he will steal the crown away for the defending champion of Callaway. It's not the way we want it to go. We want to see the 2 of them go absolutely elbow to elbow out there as close as possible as you can in Super Formula machines. But after 5 rounds, that's how it stands. And with Callaway not being here today, it would seem on paper at least, Adam Merchant will take the crown away, given he is able to make it to the race here at Brazil. However, many of you may recall, speaking of a Formula 1 analogy, back in 1996, Damon Hill, in terms of his World Championship campaign, and many at the finale at Suzuka, thought that it was just going to be a formality, but it was anything from it in the build-up to the race. It was a formality come the end of it. Well, everything can happen, and indeed anything can happen until that checker flag falls, and that's what Adam Merchant will know in the back of his mind. Meanwhile, outside the top 2 fight, you've also got a brilliant battle for P3. Philippe Sarkic currently holds on to the position, and the hometown hero today will be looking to try and do everything he can in order to be able to fend off the charge of Elliot Court, Shahi Zaher, and Antonio Bianchi. However, Sarkic will know that only 5 points separate him between himself and what is their Court, and the Briton, who has been one of the strongest drivers out there on outright pace. He's had a lot of misfortune striking over the course of this season, but could Court spin things around at the very end to move to P3. The big question also sits there: who will finish P5? Will it be Zaher or Bianchi? Only 4 points between the 2 of them there, and Leo Del Mar has moved up to P7 after his heroics at Silverstone, and could he potentially sneak his way into the top 5 when all is said and done? You never can count him out. Raymond Aguilar sits in P8, hasn't been on the grid for the last couple of rounds, and we do miss seeing him on the grid, but hopefully we'll see him back today. In fact, I don't think we will, but we'll hopefully see him back in season 13. More on that in the end of today's broadcast. And then we do have completing your top 10. Nick Peterson and Michael Fairchild, 2 drivers have been highly consistent and taken points from others and found their way into the top 10. However, Cameron Dance only sits a single point outside the top 10. It's a further 2 to Jace Mayer in P12, who's ahead of James S. Turnbull by a single point. And then Gail Rolls a further point behind, sits in P14. And all of these drivers would love to move into the top 10 before the season is over. In P15, it's Arturo Mayorga, who continues to rise his way through the ranks. He's ahead of Ryan Tebow by a single point, with Gabriel Hopp, Richard Lye, Christian Jasper, and then Xavier Zainab completing your top 20. Outside the top 20, P21, it's Gareth McAllister ahead of Carl Deckard with Robert Nobles, who we won't see on the grid today, unfortunately, due to personal circumstances, but he's promised to be back in season 13, where he's in P22, just ahead of Alex Penn based on result countback, and Deckard the same though, the free drive separated by 12 points. In P25, it's Christian Gritzko ahead of Jacob Bramley, with Frankie Brzezowski there in P27 ahead of what is the pair of Jeremy Barber and David Iezzi, both on 3 points, and then to wrap up the stands, all on 2 points apiece, Jeff Groff, Eric Guillory and Chase Small. But coming on to the Teams Championship standings after 5 rounds, what we can see is Squid Gang Racing cannot be caught at this point in time. On 282 points to 163 of Kraken Racing, they've done enough to be crowned champions around early. Congratulations to Squid Gang Racing on a phenomenal and dominant campaign. However, in the fight for P2, again, it could just be a formality today for Kraken Racing because they do stand 48 points ahead of Avanti Autosport. However, anything can happen, and we've seen that already. Blue Passport Motorsport and Avanti Autosport were both teams that look certain for P2 to be challenging for the title. However, as the season has gone on, they've had mixed fortunes. And Kraken Racing's consistency has seen them rise up the ranks into P2, but can they take that final step today to finish the job and hold off Avanti Autosport? And Blue Passport Motorsport will be keen at least to try and finish P3. Zucchi Racing are a further 8 points behind in P5. Watch out for them as they try to take P4. And it's Rodent Jr. in P6 ahead of their sister team at Rodent Racing. With Rabbit Racing in P8, all the interrelated teams there of the animal variety, all right now separated by the best part of 22 points between them. And it's BMR ahead of Ghost Squadra to complete the Team's Championship standings, but will they be in that order after today, given it's 4 points between the two? Well, our scene to make all those decisions and indeed answer all those questions is the Autodromo Jose Carlos Pacho, the Grand Prix layout of the circuit we're playing host. Now located in what is the neighbourhood of Interlagos in the city of Sao Paulo in the state of Sao Paulo in Brazil, the capital state and the capital city of the country. The reason this circuit takes the name of Interlagos as its colloquial name is in the fact that it sits between two man-made lakes within the city limits of Sao Paulo, and therefore that's why it has the name Interlagos as taken from the Brazilian language. But as our drivers go roaring around this circuit, as we can see from the brilliant circuit map provided by iRacing.com, and thank you to iRacing for their fantastic simulator, the brilliant track maps that come with it. It is a circuit that spans the best part of 15 corners, many of them household names given how infamous this circuit is, and its 2.67 mile length is absolutely enchanting when it comes to the fact that our drivers will roar around it in anti-clockwise direction and will need to keep their heads down. However, one thing that a two-dimensional circuit map does not demonstrate here is the vast amount of elevation change from lap to lap as our drivers make the way on through. And as we mentioned earlier, this circuit winds its way around the local hilly terrain of the city, and that's something that our drivers need to be ready for in the fact there'll be major tyre wear, particularly on those right-hand side tyres, given the number of left-hand corners and the number of off-camber and heavy load corners as well, and that means that our drivers will need to find the fine art of balancing what is understeer, also wearing their tyres down, and also making sure not to be caught out by the road camber. But as they charge their way down the start-finish straight and in towards turn 1, they'll be making their way into the downhill sweeping S known as the Senna S after the late-grade Ayrton Senna, and as they come out of turns 1 and 2, it's then through the Curva do Sol, turn number 3, flat out all the way as they pound their way down the Reta Aposta straight and into the braking zone for turn 4. There, it's a downhill braking zone. It's an off-camber left-hander, which will see our drive spat out into the fast-flying runner turn number 5, but get it right, okay, all the speed up towards turn 6 and 7, the double right-hander, where it's all about nailing the late apexes on both corners and carrying all the momentum before reaching one of the higher points of the infield section of the circuit at turn number 8. Then we'll see the average lap speed descend massively as they make their way through turns 8, 9 and 10. The back-to-back sequence of 3 hairpins culminated, of course, in the infamous turn 10 hairpin where we could see some major overtaking action. But if they make their way out of there unscathed, they'll then have to deal with Magulo corner at turn number 11, an off-camber left-hander that rolls its way downhill, but sets our drivers up for the heavy braking zone of Junsao corner to complete the major corners on the circuit, but not complete the lap entirely, because out of there, it's an uphill run through turns 13 and 14, and then it's the run through the Kinka 15 to complete lap and do it all over again. But coming on to our rules for today, we can't go racing without them. Drivers are running a fixed setup as provided by the league organisers at League 0, and in general for our races they begin via standing start. A driver should receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 13 instant points in any of the races, and in terms of our sprint race grid, that shall be set based on results of the preceding qualifying session, and the race shall conclude after the allotted lap round or 20 minutes, but we expect the laps to expire first. For our feature race, in terms of how the grid is set, it will be based on the results of the sprint race, but we invert the top 5 finishing positions, so the winner of the sprint starts P5 for the feature, meanwhile the 5th place finisher for the sprint starts on pole for the feature, later. And those who finish 6th and downwards in the sprint race, well, that's exactly where they start on the grid for the purposes of the feature race. And the race shall conclude after either the allotted lap amount of 45 minutes, but we're expecting those 32 laps to go by much quicker than 45 minutes. And there is a mandatory pit stop in the feature race in which drivers must change tyres, and the pit stop may be taken on or after lap 3, but not on the final 3 laps of the race. So therefore there's bound to be some strategic variety, given the fact that overtaking is highly possible here at Interlagos, but also being in the dirty air of one of your rivals can absolutely impede your aspirations to try and come away with victory or a major points haul, given it could lead to those right-hand side tyres absolutely decaying faster than expected. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go straight into qualifying, so we're going to be right back, and when we do in the next minute or so, it'll be time for qualifying. And we return, ladies and gentlemen, and as we do, it is time for qualifying. 15 minutes, it is go, go, go for the final time this season for all the drivers to get out there and try and deliver the ultimate qualifying lap. And as they roar their way out the pit lane, well, we've got some new faces on the grid today for what is the season finale, and we'll fly in the banner for what is Squid Gang Racing, albeit entered as a privateer, given he's joined so late in the season, is newcomer in the number 80 from the United States of America, AJ Brenner, which is good to see as he makes his way out of turns 4 and 5 there, and well, we very much welcome him to the grid. And well, as he makes his way on through, we've also got 2 other newcomers here today alongside Brenner joining the grid for this season finale. I think trying to get their appetite set for season 13 will firstly be, outside of AJ Brenner, none other than what is the Austrian driver, albeit I believe hailing from Spain, interesting enough, in terms of where he currently lives, but originally coming from Austria, and that is none other than Peter Reitinger, who's currently sat in the pit lane. And well, we can see there the number 44 driver just sat patiently and waited to go. Perhaps they're doing some last minute work on the car, but welcome to the grid to Peter Reitinger, and we look forward to seeing what he can do later on this qualifying session and in the races. And we also do have from the United Kingdom, no Debbie Emmel, as we do see here the privateer in the 99, flying the colours of Ferrari, and well, will he be able to channel a little bit of the prancing horse's spirit in this season finale? We'll have to wait to see, but good luck to all the newcomers on their debut today, and we look forward to what they're going to be able to do over the course of what is our 2 races to wrap up the season. As they make their way across the timeline, our drivers are currently doing a bit of tyre warming as well, and it is definitely a circuit that right now is gradually coming into its prime in terms of bringing up the temperature, as the drivers roar their way up to speed and look to try and give everything they can in order to come out at the top. We do look to the man who's got all the pressure on him today, and that will be none other than Adam Murch. In fact, he's not even in the car at the moment, so I think Murch had decided perhaps to wait to get in the car until a little bit later. We do have 1 qualifying ban in effect today in a pit lane start, and that is for what is Xavier Zainab, so you won't see him leaving his pit garage, and that is for causing an incident in the feature race at Silverstone, as deemed by the stewards after the racing. But whilst we may not have Adam Merchant out there at the moment, what we do have is AJ Brenner representing Squid Gang Racing, but then we do look to some other names here, including Philippe Sarkis, who on what is home territory, the number 4 driver for Kraken Racing here, looking to try and contest what will be that front row of the grid. Indeed, he spent more time on the second row of the grid than anybody else this season so far, if the statistics are to be believed, and will the number 4 driver be very eager to try and add what would be an adventure to the front row of the grid from qualifying if he can. However, he's going to be very close company, I should say, as he makes me stumble over my words, with the likes of Gareth McAllister here, the Australian driver for Rabbit Racing, and also what is Elliot Court, who crosses the line there, and with the Blue Passport Motorsport driver in the number 23, he's going to be the man who'll be very eager to stamp his authority with a pole position here, given the fact he's been one of a very limited number of drivers to take pole positions when it hasn't been the Squid Gang Racing pair of Jaden Callaway or Adam Merchant, and number 23 driver really has been the one to be a master over a single lap. It's fallen apart in the races, particularly in the longer races by comparison, through a mixture of circumstance and also self-enforced errors. But Court today will be having his head down once again and thinking, you know what, it's time to make things go my way. as he rolls his way up through turns 6 and 7. We will shortly get an onboard lap with one of our drivers. We are starting to see lap times come in, and it is Sarkish who has taken the provisional pole time so far of 1 minute 17.223, with Zuhair being only what is 200ths off. And the Kraken racing driver here following the footsteps of his teammate, and these two worked very well together at what was Silverstone. And funny enough, I did catch up with Zuhair in the post-race room with our drivers, and I was saying to him about the fact that he runs a profile picture on his Discord, funny enough, and this is important, you'll see why, of what is one of the McLarens back in the days of when they were powered by Mercedes engines, but more prevalently in the late 90s era when it was Mika Hakkinen and David Coulthard running for the McLaren Formula 1 team. And I mentioned to him that he gave me echoes in terms of how he works with Sarkish, particularly at Silverstone, of David Coulthard and Mika Hakkinen, who worked very closely together, with Hakkinen being the title challenger to Michael Schumacher of the time and taking home 2 Formula 1 titles, if my memory serves me correctly. But David Coulthard getting the best part of approximately what was 14 Grand Prix win. I think the statistic actually may be 18, if my memory serves me correctly, although I may be getting that mixed up with Jenson Button. But the one thing I can tell you is that whilst David Coulthard was never a championship contender necessarily, he was one to work with his teammate very closely, and that's really been perhaps the theme of this season, albeit neither Sarkish nor Zuhair have been championship challengers. They perhaps were in the early rounds, but they've fallen away from the main title battle of what was Merchant versus Callaway, with Court playing a major role in there as well. But they've definitely shown that great teamwork ethic, and that's why the team are doing so well, and that's why they're chasing down and they have a comfortable advantage in the hunt for P2 in the team's championship. As we look to the other crack of racing car, Philippe Sarkish, as he makes his way out of turn number 12. But 5 minutes of the qualifying session complete. We've still got another, 10 to go, so these laps are going to continue to trickle in from our drivers as they make the way on around. It's just about time to jump on board for a flying lap as we jump on board with Philippe Sarkish at his home circuit to take on a lap. To make his way towards the braking zone, braking at the 50 metre wall, coming down from 180 miles an hour all the way down to what was 73 miles an hour at the apex, and as he rolls his way through the ZRS, is now flat out for the Curva del Sol up towards Reta Aposta Straight. Making his way down the straightaway here, and in the tub another car in front as he gets ready to come to the brakes here. He'll be braking at what will be about 70 metres into the turn 4 apex, hitting 100 miles an hour at the apex curve before letting the car roll out wide there, using all the circuit and managing to mitigate the off-camber nature of the corner. And to turn 6 and 7 into the right hand he goes, taking a small sliver of grass with him as he makes his way on through, not unsettling the car whatsoever as he comes into the turn 8 hairpin, the right hand right angle corner, with over the riser now down into turn 9, and patience is key here as he stamps the throttle down using third gear, a high gear there, in order to be able to settle the rear tyres down in terms of applying the power. And now for turn number 10, well, that's the infield section mostly complete as he goes flat out down through Mugello corner, with a bit of understeer creeping in there. You'll notice he was slightly wide of the apex into Juncal corner at turn number 12, and again the car just drifting slightly away from the curb, and now flat out he'll go all the way towards the timeline. And what's it going to be here for Sarkish as he heads up towards what will be the timeline this time around? Could it be a resurgence to pole position, or is there more out there? He crosses the line, and it's not enough to improve. In fact, he stays P6 there, and is the best part of what was a 10th of his previous best. So more to come from Sarkish, but then again, anything can happen before the session is over, including Cameron Dance, who moves up to P2, and the driver from New Zealand, well, we've not quite seen him often up towards the front of the grid, but when he has, he's putting some stellar laps, and well, currently on course for a P2 here, 300ths off of the pole position, currently held on to by Gabriel Hop, and well, another Brazilian driver putting in an absolutely stellar stint here in qualifying. And Hop, I think, will be hoping that that is going to be enough in the number 35 car as he makes his way through the left hand for F&G Racing. And well, the privateer outfit here this season as a privateer outfit, but I suspect if they're on the grid in season 13, they'll put in a full team's title championship challenge, and well, that is going to be something that will be a spectacle to the eyes, in the fact that ever since they've been on the grid and back at Long Beach, well, the qualifying pace has been something to write home about in terms of how strong it has been, albeit in the races, fortune has not favoured them whatsoever, and they'll be hoping for a bit better fortune in over the race distance today as he makes his way out to turn number 10 in towards 11. But as he comes on down through Mugello corner and up to Juncal this time, we're now into the second half of the qualifying session, and can anybody dethrone this man, or will he find a way to improve the lap time even further? Could we see a 15.9 before this qualifying session is over? Well, keep in mind, this is a fixed setup, and that means the fuel that's in the car is the maximum fuel to begin the qualifying session with, so therefore they won't need to put any more fuel in the car, so therefore these cars in theory will get faster as the qualifying session goes on, but they will have to manage tyre wear, and oh goodness me, now that is a visual pole time that is improved on the previous best by 800s, and it is set by none other than debutant for today in the 99 Nodebe ML as he makes his way through turn number 3, but almost sideways now. I think trying to cool the car down. I don't think you can quite believe he's just put the car in provisional pole, and we'll shake him from side to side. They've got to be careful with Turnbull coming up behind him. I think James Turnbull in the end is not going to stumble over ML whatsoever as he comes out of turns 4 and 5, but the Brits are doing an absolutely brilliant job there, and we'll be hoping now that stays where it is. But then again, we could see some more improvements. We are seeing some lap times coming in. Nick Peterson recently improving for Zucchi Racing, number 24 driver here. Teammate being Michael Fairchild, who's not here today, the Colombian driver, so therefore we've just got the American driver Peterson as he comes on through what is turn 6 and 7, but he'll be trying to get his head down and do his best he can for the team as their sole representative. We do have 18 drivers in attendance today, and well, it can be definitely said it has been an absolutely packed grid all the way through the season, albeit some teams not quite able to bring both their drivers, if at all, make it to Brazil today, given the long distance, the air miles from the United Kingdom to Brazil, but still, they're definitely missed, and the drivers who we have here, well, as we like to say, it's not about the quantity, it's about the quality, and we've got some quality drivers here on the grid. All 18 of them are quality, no doubt about it, including Nick Peterson as he makes his way out of 13 and 14 in towards what will be the final kink, if you will, turn number 15. As he comes towards the timeline, will he hang the car close to the wall? Indeed, he stays out there, and that is to put himself on racing line. And well, if a driver's on a good lap, they'll keep themselves nice and tight to the pit wall, and the reason for that is they're shortening the run towards the timeline, but they'll pick up a lot of debris on the tyres, and that means when they go on to their next qualifying lap straight away, it's normally a weaker lap because they'll struggle for what is braking power into turn number 1. But as Arturo Mayorga comes across the timeline, the BMR driver heading onto the brakes here in the 55, not quite improving, staying where he is in P13 at the moment, and his previous best has been a 118.11, and he's only 500ths of a Peter Reitinger's time, and well, the Austrian driver back in the pit lane currently having some work done on the car, and well, I believe they're putting on a fresh set of tyres before he goes back out there. But keep in mind as well, this qualifying session, as we've seen all season, when we hit 15 minutes on the clock in the top centre of your screen, that is it. Qualifying ends immediately. If a driver is on a lap, they do not get to finish it. So therefore, in qualifying, you have to get the job done immediately. You cannot sit around and just simply hope to get it done in overtime when the circuit argues that it's prime and you've got the least amount of fuel in the car, as we do see ML improve there now to a 116.110, and well, ML does seem to be starting to take this qualifying session and put it into his own hands, and will hop behind. Meanwhile, is still 800ths or so off, so therefore not closing. Cameron Dance is still in P3, Elliot Court is in P4, and that is a surprise for Court, who is 8,000ths of a Dance this time, because normally Elliot Court has been the man. When we haven't seen Squid Gang Racing put in some absolutely stellar pole laps, then it's been Court who's been able to go for the crown in qualifying. But as the drivers continue to push on, also some surprises. Antonio Bianchi, the Avanti Autosport driver in number 17, really struggling at the moment, just on the top 10 with P10, and only what is 1/10 faster than Peterson, and he's a 10th off a Turnbull. So it does seem as though here some of the big names we normally see towards the bottom end of the top 5 is just outside of the top 5, struggling today, and Bianchi the biggest one there. Adam Merchant not going out in qualifying, intriguingly enough. Perhaps he's deciding to start from the back of the field 9. He only needs to finish the races today in order to be able to take home the Drivers' Championship crown, and therefore he doesn't want to risk anything by starting up towards the front, and well, they might be deciding to play safe rather than sorry, and that's a good way to go when all you need to do is bring the car home to become a champion for season 12. But then again, could it be that by sitting towards the back of the field, perhaps a little bit of complacency settles in? You never know, but I doubt it, Adam Merchant, given the fact that he really has had his head down all season. The only real speed bump for Squid Gang Racing's drivers was at Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps in round 1 of the season, where it all went wrong for them after a 1-2 lockout in qualifying. They all went backwards in the sprint race, and from there they had to recover. But meanwhile, speaking of recovery, well, Elliot Court, we mentioned only moments ago, would he put it on pole? And he's put it on provisional pole, 116.104, 5,000 faster than Emil there. And Debbie Emil right now will be looking at that and thinking, well, what do I need to do then to take this back back. Well, you've only got to find 5 thousandths. That's not much time at all. But the problem is every thousandth matters, and it's all about taking every little bit of extra width of the circuit. Every millimetre matters here in terms of opening up those corners and being able to carry a little bit more speed through the apex, and that can make the difference. And also taking the fuel out of the car with that uphill run out of Jinsel all the way towards the timing line. Well, that's what you've got in the car. The less mass you have to push uphill, and well, doing the basic mathematics there, the key thing will be that you'll carry more speed and you'll get to the timeline more quickly. But all good, it's being caught, loses it there, coming on through Magulo as he tries to push harder and harder. So number 23 driver, that will put an absolutely scorching mark through those rear tyres, and I would imagine that Court may decide to come into the pits once he rejoins, and well, in doing so, we'll keep you appraised of that, but I believe his tyres will be completely worn down. So we see Emil there sliding his way into turn 1, and well, the British driver right now absolutely hustling in order to try and improve, but I don't think it's going to improve on this lap, and well, this is his final qualifying lap. He can't afford any more laps after this, given the fact he's got less than 1.5 minutes. The lap time around here is approximately 1 minute 16 if you're going for pole, and therefore you do the mathematics, he won't be able to get another in because we'll call time at 15 minutes. So therefore Emil right now has got to try and spring one last surprise, but Court may have just snatched this away from Emil on his debut, as meanwhile Bianchi does improve, moves up to P7 off camera, 116.666, the number of the devil, and the devil's in the detail. But as we see Emil making his way in towards turn number 10, well, can he find a way to improve in terms of sector 1 and sector 2 so far have not been improvements whatsoever, and he loses the rear coming through 11, much like Cord, pushing so hard, and Emil's qualifying session will be over as Gabriel Hopp comes blisteringly out of turn 14, and to the timeline he goes. He thinks on the improvement lap, can he get himself on the front row? No, he can't. He stays P3, and we've only got 30 seconds left. Is anybody out there who can set the time now? Well, Nick Peterson will be one of the last drivers to get that time, and he's got enough time, 20 seconds enough to get out the final corner and all the way round just about. But I do not think we'll see Shahi Zahir finish his lap that he's currently on, and he's improving in sectors 1 and 2. Well, there's Peterson coming to the line, and Peterson does not improve. What about Zuhair? He gets to the line just in time, and as he does so, he improves. He stays P6 with a 16.401, but pole position, ladies and gentlemen, goes to Elliot Cord for our first race of the day, and for what is our final qualifying session of the season. What a qualifying session, no doubt about it, and let's take you through that grid. Well, as we can see then, after an absolutely tight as nails qualifying session for the sprint race in round 6 of season 12 of the Inca Salsa Formula Series, brought to you by League Zero on iRacing, Elliot Court taking pole position for Blue Passport Motorsport on the 116.106 by 5 thousandths over the privateer Nodebi Emil on his debut, who took P2. Behind the two Britons on the front row is the Brazilian driver of Gabriel Hopp, who starts P3, a further what was 800ths behind. And then on P4 it's Cameron Dance, the New Zealand driver, just missing out on pole position by a 10th. That's how close it was. The closest qualifying session we have seen all season, and an absolutely incredible one at that. Philippe Sarkic starts P5 for Kraken Racing ahead of teammate Shahi Zahir as they lock out the third row of the grid. Antonio Bianchi starts P7 for Avanti Autosport in a strong qualifying session towards the end, but struggling early on ahead of AJ Brenner on his debut, starts P8. Now you have Leo Del Mar for Rodent Jr. and the privateer James Turnbull, who complete your top 10. Outside the top 10, it's Nick Peterson, who starts P11 on the 6th row of the grid for Zucchi Racing ahead of Gareth McAllister for Rabbit Racing. And then we do have on row number 7 the combination of Arturo Mayorga for BMR and Peter Reitinger, the privateer, on his debut from Austria. Eric Hillary starts P15, the last of our qualified drivers in terms of time set for BMR. P16 will be Adam Merchant for Squid Game Racing, who knows all he's got to do is get to the checker flag in this race and the next one to become champion. And then Jace Mayer for Rabbit Racing and Ronan Jr. Xavier Zainav with that qualifying ban, and indeed we'll start from the pit lane. We'll complete your 18 car lineup on this grid. Will be 17 cars, given Zainav will start from the pit lane, but whether it be 18 or 17, it is going to be a short run to turn 1, and it is going to be one that all the drivers will be thinking about how can they get the best launch off the line. If you're sat in the car with Elliot Court right now, indeed we've got that onboard perspective for a brief moment, he'll be thinking to himself, I just need to nail the start. It's an uphill run for those who start on the front row of the grid, but will it be downhill or uphill from here? Well, here we go then, ladies and gentlemen. For the first time today, the engines roar, and without further ado, it is lights out and away we go here in Brazil as Elliot Court gets underway. Emil meanwhile is inside. Emil gets the better launch in the second phase, but Court's going to do enough to stay ahead as they roar their way down through turn number 1. And as they make their way into the centre S, where it's going to be too wide further back there, as you can see going around the outside to cover off P6 Antonio Bianchi, who's had a great start. Shahi Zuhair's lost 2 places there as they make their way down the retro poster straight, and immediately it's gloves off, and here we go as it's almost 3 wide. You can see Brennan looking up the inside of 1 and 2, and he goes all in versus Avanti Autosport's Bianchi, and Bianchi runs wide. Brenner there catches a bit of oversteer on cold tyres, and in the end Bianchi takes the place back, but not without Shahi Zuhair coming up the inside here into turn 6 and 7. Zuhair being absolutely brazen, and knowing he needs to get the place back. It's a brilliant move from the Kraken Racing driver, and takes back P7's behind, car around, and that is a spin for none other than Leo Del Mar, who's gone around in a special livery for Rodent Jr. today, and it's not a special start for the 21 drivers. We can see there Zaria Zainab, who started from the pit lane, bringing it back together and immediately taking evasive action as Del Mar with hot tyres is struggling to get the car pointing in the right direction. But as he tries to get over his misfortune, meanwhile, we see at the front of the field, Elliott Court is still leading as they come towards the end of this first lap of the 10 in the sprint race as they roar their way towards the timeline. And now Emil's under increasing pressure from Dance and Hop as they make their way onto lap number 2. So after one lap, it is Court ahead of Emil, followed by Dance. That's your top 3. Hop in P4 ahead of Sarkic P5. The 2 Brazilian drivers losing out at the start and looking to come back as quick as possible. There's a lock-up there, a huge lock-up for what's Gabriel Hop behind, and as they roll on through onto the retro poster in P6, it's Bianchi ahead of Zuhair. Then we have Turnbull in P8 ahead of Merchant, who started all the way from P6, has made his way to P9 already, and Nick Peterson completes your top 10 with Gareth McAllister, best of rest P11. We do have AJ Brenner in the pit lane. He's been involved in some sort of altercation on this open lap, and Leo Damar's in the pit lane as well. I think those tyres have been flat spotted, and therefore he's putting on a new set of tyres and also having the team look over the car. But Adam Merchant right now, well, having started P16, he was never going to sit back and just sit on this race as we sit on board with the number 41 driver, and well, right now he'll want to try and bring home a major result in order to bring home that crown with him, as we see Turnbull going a little bit deep coming out of turn number 9, and Merchant trying to capitalise here, thinking about the move into turn 10, decides against it and just trying to size up the move at the moment and being very patient. And he doesn't have all the time in the world, but to be fair, the 41 driver has sufficient time to think about where he wants to make the move, and I would imagine that Turnbull would want to work with Merchant so that the two of them can catch up to Zuhair just up the road, who's 2 seconds up the road. Indeed, it's not too far away. We'll have to wait to see if that is the plan for the 2 drivers here today, as Merchant now getting closer and closer in the tow, plus push to pass being used, and as he makes his way side by side, they roar their way past the Conte roof window. It's too wide into the braking zone for turn number 1, but Merchant on the inside, then Turnbull defending it on the outside, but not quite able to hold it all the way around to the inside of turn 2, and as the Merchant gains the place and moves up into P8. Meanwhile, at the front of the field, Elliott Court now gradually being caught up to by Emil, Dance and Hop, and the gap between the top 4 separation now of 1.4 seconds in totality as they roar their way out of turns 4 and 5. All these 4 drivers absolutely push each other. Sarkic also on the back of this, and indeed it's only when it's 2 seconds between the top 5, so it is equidistant between all 5 drivers here in terms of what is 4 tenths apiece as they come on down towards turns 8, 9 and 10, and then you have a sizable what is 1.8 seconds gap to Antonio Bianchi in P6, so the top 5 gradually breaking away, and we'll have to wait and see whether any fighting in amongst this top 5 will start to usher them back together, or whether it will see them split out and perhaps bring some drivers further behind into the battle. But with that fault in mind, as we look back here to Zuhair, who's getting a bit closer coming out of Magulo corner to the back of Bianchi, well, coming in a bit hot there under braking. You can see the car was trying to slide, but Zuhair able to get the car stopped in time. Well, for the Kraken Racing driver, not the race start he wanted. He wants to be in P6 in order to assist Sarkic in bringing home what is a top 5 result, and also this P6 in order to pretty much guarantee for Kraken Racing that team's championship runner-up spot. But then again, there's still a way to go, and we've got one more race after this, and Bianchi finishing P6 will not be too much of a damage in terms of their team's championship aspirations, but it'll just mean they've got to work a little bit harder to secure things in the feature race, as Zuhair's still in the tow and looking for an opportunity. And also keep in mind, in what is the Drivers' Championship, we have got the contest for P3 through to P6 between Zuhair and Bianchi, particularly for that P5 spot, and also we've got the battle between Sarkic and Court for P3, and well, Elliott Court right now as your race leader, if he can bring home those points plus also the fastest lap, he'll move himself into lead of that battle for P3 in the Drivers' Championship, and Sarkic will then need the ultimate result of a win in our feature race in order to be able to turn the tables back in its favour. But meanwhile, we need to turn the tapes back to lap number 1, and particularly the instant for Leo Del Mar, and try and understand what exactly happened to the driver. Just in the run up towards turn 6, 7 and then to 8 and onto the brakes. He'll go the road of junior driver hard on the brakes, and there was contact there with the side of AJ Brenner, and that is what sent Delmar round, and that explains why Brenner's had to come into the pits as well. So Delmar looked up the inside, thought there was the space, Brenner turned in, and well, the two drivers will be frustrated with one another there. I think Delmar would argue that he had the right to the line, and well, after that his tyres were gone, and well, that explains the story there, ladies and gentlemen, as we now return to your live racing. But as we do come back to live racing action here in Brazil, will roaring his way on through the number 23 driver of court coming out of turns 4 and 5. He's still got Emil, Dance, Hop and then Sarkish behind. The drivers all still with him. No change at the moment, it would seem, albeit the sun starting to come out here over the Sao Paulo circuit. They'll all be feeling as though the pressure is building. And speaking of building pressure, Jace Mayer still trying to find a way past Eric Guillory for P13. The BMR driver keeping him behind. And these two have had a great little rivalry all season between them. They haven't always been fighting for points, but they've been fighting for positions and a bit of pride. And well, you can see that the 77 driver close, but not quite close enough to think about moving to turn number 8. And Guillory, in his day, well, I tell you, the BMR driver, he may not be the fastest out there, but he's definitely been highly entertaining to watch in terms of trying to make up places and pick up points at the bottom end of the top 10. And well, it's always great to see the smaller teams in terms of their performances when they do pull off that big result, because to them, taking a point home inside the top 10 is as important as a win for our championship contenders, and that's why every driver matters on this grid, because there's a big story to tell for everybody here over the course of the season. And Eric Guillory for BMR after what are some challenging results earlier on in the season. Well, Long Beach things did turn around. At Silverstone, it definitely was hard work, but here comes May out the inside, and Guillory will be thinking about the here and now and not the past. They go too wide through turn 1, and Guillory there with a successful defence as he comes to the centre. It's now the curve of Stars. We look back from the rear of the BMR car, and will the overtake button being deployed there by Mayer. Guillory will be doing the same, and you can see there the two equal now as they drag race their way down towards turn number 4 and lap number 6 of this race. There's going to be Mayer up the inside. Guillory relents for a brief moment, but of course he does have now the momentum coming out of turn number 5 plus the toe in the uphill run. He'll try and come back here. Side by side they're going to turn number 6, and as they roar their way through the right-hander, it's not quite enough for Guillory to get back. He's going to go all in on the brakes here. The car's snaking around, and it looks like they're breaking that inside line. There's just not enough grip available, and in the end, as much as Guillory was able to retard the car in time, it wasn't enough to force the door back open, and Jace Mayer holds on to P13. Brilliant battle between the two of them as they now make the way towards turn number 11, and could we see some more sparks later on? We'll have to wait and see. Meanwhile, coming back up towards the front of the field, while race leader sets a new fastest lap, Court sets a 16.077. Meanwhile, Emil now falling away, 7/10 slow on that lap. Emil was struggling, it would seem, as the pro team makes it out of turns 1 and 2, and through the left-hander of 3 he goes, but you can see Cameron Dance close behind as the New Zealander goes on the attack here as they power their way down the first main straight of the lap and coming into the braking zone. Well, Emil right now not under pressure to have to go defensive, but I think it's not going to be too far away before he has to think about it. Meanwhile, further back, this is Peterson versus Turnbull for P9. Turnbull on the attack here. Peterson trying to hold on as they come through turn 4 and in towards turn 5 they go, and out the left hander, and Peterson doing just enough right now, but James Turnbull absolutely wanting to go for this, and this is what we love to see as they make the way through turn 6 and 7. Up the rise and into the braking zone, and Peterson under major pressure for Zucchi Racing, and Turnbull right now absolutely trying to stamp his authority in this battle to try and move himself a little bit further forward in this race as the distance continues to wind on. Meanwhile, just up the road from them, we do see Shahi Zahair find himself now with Adam Merchant hot on his heels, and in front Antonio Bianchi, and will Merchant absolutely going all in, but at the same time as well, given the fact that Merchant started from P16, you would imagine he's going to play it safe and just gradually wind his way on through if he can. From these drivers, it's then only what is 1.5 seconds to Philippe Sarkish in P5, and Will Merchant's going to look around the outside here. Zuhair does not go too defensive in the end. He holds that inside line, but I think it's a small lift and coast there. Lets Merchant go and recognises his fight for P5 in the championship is not with Adam Merchant, it's with Antonio Bianchi, and that will be his target as Merchant now will go after the Avanti Autosport car. And if you're Bianchi at this point, you've got to be thinking, what do I do? Do I try and force Merchant behind me for these 3 laps that are remaining, or do I let him go and just try not to lose any time? Well, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, because of the fact that if Bianchi does try to defend, then he'll cost himself time, he'll cost himself tyre life and put himself under pressure for later in the race. The reverse, however, is if he lets Merchant go in the wrong manner, he'll find himself very quickly being caught up to by Zuhair, and Zuhair may even use that as an opportunity to pass him. So therefore, right now in the battle for what is effectively P5 through to P7, it is Antonio Bianchi, or in fact P6 through to P8, I should say. It's Antonio Bianchi who really does have the worst situation in terms of calls, and I think he'll be having his team on the radio telling him, you just need to defend here. You cannot afford, unless we do see a gap for Zuhair where he falls back significantly, you can't afford to just simply let Merchant go. Meanwhile, speaking of letting things go, well, here is a move for P2 being made by Cameron Dance. Now will Emil let it go into the braking zone. They roll, and as they do, coming down for the centre S, Dance up the inside and has got it done, and no Debbie Emil in the end not fighting it too hard. I think thinking about coming back here, coming out of the Curva del Sol in towards turn number 4, they'll charge. The gap there 2.5 tenths, but as they build up speed, not enough in the tank there from the Briton to try and make the move on the Nzinda, and I think therefore it's all about patience. As meanwhile up the inside into turn 4 goes out a Merchant on Bianchi, and there's the precise point we were talking about, given that Bianchi had to go a bit wide on the exit of 4. Here comes Zuhair looking around the outside, goes all in for it, in the end goes for the cutback run, but Bianchi parks it on the apex of 6, stops it hard on the apex of 7, and does so on 8. You can see there's having to let the car go deep in order not to tap the rear of his rivals. They make the way out to turn number 9 up towards 10. These two right now, they may not be battling for the title, but for them that 5th place in the championship will feel like a title crown as they come out of turn 10, and Zuhair throwing everything out, is keeping it nice and tight on entry to turn 11. That puts even more strain on the tyres on the right hand side, but he's trying to send a message to Bianchi, and that is, I want this P7 off of you, no ifs, no buts. But I think Bianchi's going to have plenty of buts, which he's going to try and throw in his way as they roar the way onto the final lap of racing here in the sprint in Brazil, as Court leads this race still. Meanwhile behind, 2 seconds back, the battle for P2, and straight on goes Emil. He goes straight on towards the barrier, but he manages to stop it in time and rolls back onto the circuit on the exit of the Centre S. Taking evasive action there is now Philippe Sarkic, who tries to go around the outside, grass down the tyres for Emil, and you can see Sarkic down to look for the move as they make the way down the Retro Posta straight, roaring the way towards the braking zone. Emil going as defensive as he can, and well, there is a switchback attempt from Sarkic, but in the end carries too much speed in the dirty air and runs wide out of turn number 4. Up the hill they'll go up towards 5 and 6, well, as they roll into the double right of 6 and 7. Emil right now absolutely trying to claw the life in this P4, but you can see there Sarkic looking for the move. The doors open as they come on down through the right into left hander, and Emil going defensive all the way through these hairpins. He's got to in order to hold on to the position, and already Hop and Dance have moved to 3 seconds up the road as the queue of cars builds up behind, and coming out of turn number 10. Will there be any further moves? I don't think so at the moment, unless there's an error coming out the final corner for Emil. Otherwise, he's just got to get a good run. Meanwhile, what on earth has happened to Adam Merchant, who's going slowly? I think he's had a spin of some description. We'll have to find out later, because meanwhile, the checker flag waves, and Elliot Court takes the first victory of the day for Blue Passport Motorsport by 2 seconds over Cameron Dance, and then it'll be Gabriel Hop who completes the podium. The number 35 driver, 3.5 seconds ahead of Nodebi Emil, who just holds on to P4. Philippe Sarkic P5 for Kraken Racing ahead of Antonio Bianchi P6. Shahi Zahir P7. Nick Peterson comes across the line P8, and then it'll be James Turnbull and Gareth McAllister who complete your top 10. The Rabbit Racing driver finishing 3.2 seconds ahead of what was best the rest P11 Arturo Mayorga. Meanwhile, Xavier Zainav will come home P12, and I believe the Rodent Junior driver there passing Adam Merchant right at the end. I think Merchant has either got an issue with the car, well in fact I think there's an issue with the car. He's crawling along there as Peter Reitinger will finish P13, and Merchant, well, he's just stuck there. In fact I think the car, the engine's blown on it because they've had to tow it to the pits just before the finish line, so therefore he will be classified as a finisher of this race. He'll be classified as a lap down, and meanwhile Leo Del Mar will take home what will be P14 as the Rodent Junior driver comes out of the final couple of quarters here to make his way towards the timing line. And well, the number 21 Cole gained 1 place right at the end, but it's been a frustrating race after that contact between himself and AJ Brenner on the open lap. And well, for the Frenchman, there's still one more race to go, but my goodness, ladies and gentlemen, what a race to set up our season finale race. And indeed, nobody could have predicted how it would play out in that manner, but absolutely brilliant racing from lights out to checker flag. And well, now let's take a look at those race results subject to any stewards inquiries, and here they are. And as we can see, after 10 laps of racing in our sprint race for round 6 of season 12 of the League Zero Inca Salsa Formula Series, brought to you on iRacing, Elliot Court bringing on home victory for Blue Passport Motorsport, having started on pole, doing exactly what he needed to do to fend off the challenge from all his rivals and taking victory by 2.2 seconds. Finishing P2, Cameron Dance, who leapt his way from the second row of the grid to P2 and never looked back. The privateer there just holding off the charge of Gabriel Hop, who in the end finished on the third and final spot of the podium on his his home circuit. Nodemi Emil on his debut, doing very well to hold on to P2 until that late mistake under braking into turn 1, sent him wide, but in the end fending off the change for P4 and taking that position all the way to the checker flag. And then Philippe Sarkish finishing P5 there for Kraken Racing, and with that being rewarded with the reverse grid at pole position, that top 5 inversion for the upcoming 32-lap feature race. Antonio Bianchi P6 for Avanti Autosport, holding off the change from Shahi Zuhair, the Kraken Racing driver finishing P7, as their battle for P5 in the championship will now be practically level as they go into the final race of the season. And then Nick Peterson at P8 for Zucchi Racing, in the end finishing 8/10 ahead of James Turnbull in their great battle, and Gareth McAllister finishing off the top 10 there for Rabbit Racing. Vesta SP11 was Arturo Mayorga for BMR ahead of Rodent Jr. Xavier Zainab, who started from the pit lane to finish in a valiant P12, ahead of Peter Reitinger, the Austrian driver, after a challenging qualifying session taking P13, ahead of Leo Delmar, the last lead lap finisher for Rodent Jr. Adam Merchant finished a lap down with a damaged engine right at the end of the race, taking P15, the Squid Gang Racing driver, but he'll be on the grid for our final race of the season. And then Jace Matt and Eric Guillory finishing 3 laps down there with late retirements to the Rabbit Racing and BMR machines, and AJ Brenner having to retire at the end of lap 1 after that contact with Leo Delmar, when he is our sole non-finisher of this race as classified. So 18 starters, 17 finishers, of which 14 on the lead lap, ladies and gentlemen, and we've still got one more race to come, because that was the 10-lap sprint, but we are very shortly going to be getting underway with our 32-lap feature race, and well, it is all to play for in the final race of the season, and keeping us entertained out of the circuit. It's 2.5 minutes before we head to our final grid of the season is Eric Guillory in the BMR car, and well, keeping the smiles out there, the number 95 driver. But to give you an update with regards to that championship battle for P3 firstly in what is the Drivers' Championship, we can tell you that based on that result, it does mean that Elliott Court moves back into what is level playing versus none other. And then Philippe Sarkish, the two of them now separated by only 1 or 2 points in the favour of Sarkish, and therefore Court will be looking to try and push himself to the limit and get ahead of Sarkish to take what will be P3 in the Drivers' Championship. And meanwhile, in the battle for P5, it is now level practically between Shahi Zuhair and Antonio Bianchi, and well, those are the two big question marks. And well, meanwhile, in the Teams Championship, it is still Kraken Racing who are comfortably on course for that P2, unless they both retire from this race and Avanti Autosport was able to take the maximum points. But otherwise, it's looking as though it'll be the battle for P3 between Avanti Autosport and Blue Passport Motorsport, and Blue Passport Motorsport have made some significant ground on Avanti as a result of Elliott Court's win in that sprint race. As Leo Delmar now makes his way out of the pit lane there, the Rodent Junior driver just creeping on out. Special livery on the car there, and I think celebrating the colours of what is the French flag in honour of his home country, as he makes his way out of the pit lane and down towards turn number 4. If you haven't already got yourself some liquid refreshment, ladies and gentlemen, in what is the build-up to our final race of the season, we definitely recommend you do so now, because you won't want to miss our season finale race. And remember, in the Drivers' Championship, in order to bring home the crown, Adam Merchant just needs to be classified as a finisher in this final race. Meanwhile, in the battle for P3, well, it is anybody's guess whether it is going to be Court or Sarkish. And in the battle for P5, well, Bianchi versus Zuhair, either one can take it. They just need to finish one step ahead of the other. In the Teams Championship, well, Squid Game Race have already taken the crown, and it looks like Kraken Racing are on course for P2, barring exceptional circumstances. So will it be Avanti Autosport or Blue Passport Motorsport who take what is P3? Those are the questions, and the big questions that they are to be, as we are now only 30 seconds away from going racing, and that means we've got a bit of perfect time to take a quick sip of water. As Delmar makes his way in towards turns 1, 2 and 3, once again, he won't be able to complete this lap given the time remaining. An absolutely brilliant circuit, the Interlagos circuit, no doubt about it. And one of the oldest circuits on the South American continent, I do believe. But without further ado, it's time to enter history, ladies and gentlemen. And who will put their names in the history books here in Season 12 of the League Zero Inca Salsa Formula Series? It is time for us to find out. And as our drivers make the way onto the grid, well, we won't be able to quite walk you through that grid, given the fact that it's going to be erroneous. But what we can do is present to you where all the drivers are on the grid placements, and we can walk you through the grid as follows. On pole position will be at Philippe Sarkish with that top 5 inversion for Kraken Racing. He's joined on the front row of the grid by debutant Nodebi ML, who had a brilliant race number 1. Gabriel Hopp and Cameron Dance line up on row 2 ahead of Elliot Court, your winner from race 1. He starts P5. He's joined on the third row of the grid by Antonio Bianchi with Shahi Zahir and Nick Peterson on row number 4. Then it's James Turnbull and Gareth McAllister who complete what is your top 10. Outside the top 10, it's Arturo Mayorga, best to P11 ahead of Xavier Zainav, with row number 7 going to Peter Reitinger and Leo Delmar. And then we have on the penultimate row of the grid, Adam Merchant and Jace Mayer, with the final row of the grid being populated by Eric Guillory and AJ Brenner. That's a quick walkthrough of the 18-car grid. All the drivers are pitted to start on the grid. No pit lane starts expected for any of our drivers. Should they choose to do so, however, that's up to them. But the grid is set, ladies and gentlemen. I believe Reitinger and Guillory are starting from the pit lane. The engines are rolling for the final time this season. 32 laps on the final journey of the championship campaign. And it's lights out and away we go as Philippe Sarkish looks to try and get a good run off the line. He does just about, but you can see Emil there getting very close into the braking zone into turn 1. As they do, car wide out on the outside, and that is going sideways. That is Gabriel Hopp, who's had an absolute nightmare start, albeit the car has been pointing in the right direction, but it's been aided. Oh my goodness! And that is a major bit of netco contact there for Xavier Zainav, unless I'm mistaken, with another driver. And what a nightmare moment for multiple drivers. But meanwhile, up at turn number 4, Emil's trying to go the long way round the outside here, Philippe Sarkish, and Sarkish is not going to just let him go as they head up towards turn 6 and 7, and Emil's across the road. Now, was he tapped? Oh my good lord! It's all going horribly wrong for so many drivers at the start of this race, and Adam Merchant, who started all the way down in what was none other than P15, now finds himself in the lead this race. You couldn't make this up. We're going to have to try and dissect this a number of replays when we can, but Merchant is now leading, and Antonio Bianchi's in P2, just ahead of Court behind in P3. And well, my jaw's going to drop to the floor if anything else happens at this rate, because that is completely unexpected. And well, as our drivers were all the way towards the end of this first lap, I think we have multiple cars in the pit lane very shortly, and a number of cars crawling to the pit lane. But one thing's for certain, the driver who's not crawling right now, and well, he'll love to bring home a win to crown off his title, will be Adam Merchant for Squid Game Racing, who completes lap number 1 as our leader. Behind him by 1.2 seconds is Antonio Bianchi. And then we do have Elliot Court in P3 ahead of Nick Peterson at P4. And then we've got Gabriel Hopp P5 ahead of Shahi Zahir, but hold up a second as we see there's Zahir looking for the move on the inside, can't quite find it, but trying to make a move happen here for what is at P5 is Zahir 9. He wants to chase down Bianchi as much as he can as they roar their way on down the Eretta Aposta, and given that Sarkish is in the pit lane, albeit it's going to be now Bianchi's opportunity to try and strike back versus Kraken Racing. As we said earlier, anything can happen until that final checkered flag falls, and this race has definitely articulated that in the space of the opening lap. But as Hopp manages to keep Zahir behind, Zahir now under pressure from none other than James Turnbull, who's in P7 with Jace Mayer, Leo Delmar and AJ Brenner completing your top 10. Arturo Mayorga is P11 best to rest, and as Zahir makes his way out of what is turn number 9, we ride on board with the number 10 driver as he comes in towards turning out of it, and we're right now just keeping his head down and trying to keep himself as composed as possible. And imagine he's just taking it one corner and one lap at a time here as he looks to try and come back at the car in front of him, albeit the privateer machine of Hopp right now seems to be gradually inching away little by little, and Peterson being 1.5 seconds up the road. You'd have to imagine that Shahi Zahir at this point will be thinking more about, okay, perhaps I need to start working with one of my rivals in front of me as I head down the start finish straight. But here comes a move from Turnbull. Turnbull sees an opportunity here to gain another position and go for his best result of the season, albeit he's not going to be able to go for it there, as meanwhile off camera we can tell you that Court has found his way past Bianchi into turn 1, and Zahir right now absolutely charging on here as they make the way on down the Eretta Aposta once again out of the pit lane. Comes Xavier Zainav with a repaired car. It was only light repairs that were needed, and Zahir going defensive. And remember, they can begin their pit stops at the end of this lap, and they're allowed to pit all the way up to including the end of what is lap number 29. But as the drivers make the way in towards turn 6 and 7, we stay glued to this battle for P6, and Turnbull right now could be the fly in the ointment for Kraken Racing, and for Zahir's aspirations to beat Bianchi to P5 in the championship, in terms of the Drivers' Championship, given the fact that Bianchi's in P3, and if things were to finish as they currently stand, Bianchi would take P5, I do believe, by what would be a small margin, but it would be enough. But the drivers, they make the way onwards towards turn number 12. Well, the Kraken Racing driver here still gets his head down and trying to push on. He just needs to gain one more place, and it would be enough for him to be able to make sure he finishes ahead of Bianchi in that championship battle. But it is so close between the two of them right now, and anything can happen before all is said and done. But with that thought in mind, we need to take a look back at what exactly happened at the race start, and was Antonio Bianchi decides to come into the pit lane. He's going for the undercut strategy here. He wants to come in immediately and get that pit stop out of the way, but that means those tyres are going to have to do an absolutely tremendous 29 laps, and that's going to be a lot of tyre wear on his shoulders. Well, as we look for our pit lane to Eric Guillory, he's tucked in behind teammate for BMR, Arturo Mayorga, the two teammates running together. Well, let's get a replay of that race start and try to dissect everything that happened. Well, as we do look to your race start pictures, ladies and gentlemen, apologies there for our timing tower being a little bit erroneous. Well, we can see our drivers getting underway there, and as they did, well, Elliott Court very quickly making his way into that braking zone, and, well, I believe, oh, goodness me, there was contact there between what was Hop and the car. Oh, I believe that was Bianchi who came into the contact and Court make his way on through. But then what happens is there is a Zainav behind as we take another look back, and this is the on-board of Zainav, who had a great start to this race and in fact made a load of progress early on, then hard on the brakes. He was already up multiple places, and in the end had to take evasive action once, and as he comes on down here, gets squeezed, and I think that was contact there with the car of AJ Brenner that sent him to the barrier, and that would explain what exactly happened to Zainav. And well, then we need to take a look at what happened later on in that lap when we did see our drivers making the way up the rise, and it was a nightmare moment for Emil and company, and this was they made the way up towards turn number 6 and contact there to the rear of Emil's car from what was Sarkish, and in the end Emil just spearing onwards and collecting Cameron Dance, and the three drivers coming together there in that braking zone. And well, I think Sarkish may be wondering whether he needs to brake a little bit earlier. We jump on board for a perspective if we can from Sarkish's car, and well, as we do, ladies and gentlemen, here it is, and as he made his way on in, there was the contact, and in the end, well, for Sarkish, it all unfolded in the blink of an eye and not the way we wanted it to go whatsoever, as we return to your live racing pictures. But as we do so, ladies and gentlemen, we've still got more racing to come here at the Brazilian circuit, no doubt about it, albeit there's been quite a bit of drama, it must be said, as the drivers continue to push on over this race distance. But as they do, well, we can see from Shahi Zaher's perspective here, and we look to the outside of the car, he's still trying to push on here in P4, keeping in mind that, of course, his main rival in the form of Bianchi has already come into the pits, and Zuhair into the pits, in fact, so a lot of drivers deciding to pit early as James Turnbull is now released into P4, so it looks like here the main plan might be to go for the undercut as much as possible, but I would imagine that Zuhair might also be doing this to try and get rid of the pressure from James Turnbull behind. But where will that put Bianchi versus what is Zuhair? That's the question. Well, here comes Bianchi towards the timing line. In fact, we look to the blimp camera. Can we see Zuhair in his pit stall? Indeed, he's just leaving it now. So Bianchi has gained time here as a result of by pitting early. He's gained a sizable amount of time. That's looking to be the best part of at least 5 to 6 seconds of time he's gained as a result of this strategy. So Bianchi with the right call initially, but is it the right call in the long term, given the fact those tyres are going to do an absolutely huge amount of distance compared to some of his rivals out there? Well, he'll be the one to know if it is the tyre life that's going to come back to haunt him, and we will gradually see it in terms of how his race develops as time wears on. But we've got a long way to go in this race. Indeed, we haven't even quite finished a quarter of it yet, so therefore anything could happen until we do get to that final checker flag of the season. But from our drivers there, we look back to the front of the field as he comes onto lap 7. It's none other than Adam Merchant, and the Squid Game Racing driver here putting in fastest lap after fastest lap as he crosses that timeline and continues to try and just charge away, albeit Elliott Court is trying to match him as best as he possibly can. But Merchant right now doing a classic Squid Game Racing drive here of just breaking away, building up a bit of an advantage and using that as the padding distance in order to be able to force his rivals to play chase. And if they can't, he'll just feel comfortable and safe, broken away and giving himself enough distance to bring this result home. As Elliott Court, meanwhile, 2 seconds behind. Well, Court right now, things finish as they currently stand, he would be bringing home what would be P3 in the Drivers' Championship. He would finish ahead of Sarkisha. In fact, the car is in the pit lane still for Kraken Racing. racing. So I think Sarkisian's race is over, and essentially that will relegate him, subject to court finishing this race, that would relegate him to a P4 finish in the Drivers' Championship, which is not the way I've wanted it to go whatsoever. But Elliott Court here will now know that the big prize that he's hunting for today, it's in front of him in terms of that race win, but the flip side of the coin being that the wider prize, he'll want that P3 in the championship, or they wanted to go for the championship win, where he'll know that P3 is there and he can use that as the foundation to build upon for what is a Season 13 campaign. As meanwhile, we've had a tow to the pits, I believe, for Jace Mayer, who we've lost. Well, something's gone very, very wrong for Jace Mayer, albeit we haven't quite seen it on camera, but he's had to be towed to the pits. And, well, let's try and get a replay of what exactly's happened, ladies and gentlemen. And here is the replay for Jace Mayer coming on through turn at number 10. The Rabbit Racing car going on through, runs a little bit wide there. Oh my goodness, and tries to get the power down, and the rear left tyre just does not hook up. Puts Jace Mayer to the barrier, and that was his race all done and dusted as we turn to your live racing pictures. And as we do, we'll come back to your leader there, as the rate of attrition continues to pile up, and that is Mayer's car now that I suspect will be in the pit lane for the rest of this race. So they may be able to get it out right at the end. Well, we had 18 starters this race, albeit we have lost Peter Reitinger, also there, no, Debbie Emmel and Philippe Sarkish all in the opening lap. A lap later, we lost Gareth McAllister. We've also lost Cameron Dance, also at Jace Mayer most recently. So we're now down to 12 of our 18 runners still on circuit, and therefore the battles right now may become more strategic rather than on circuit immediately, albeit Shahi Zahir will be chasing after Gabriel Hop. And these two absolutely push each other. Do keep in mind that Hop has already had to come into the pits once due to damage sustained to the car on the open lap of the race. Zuhair, meanwhile, well, he's coming to the pits to serve his strategy. So therefore these two are on different strategies in entirety, and it might be the situation whereby they just try to work together in order to achieve their respective goals as the race distance continues to extend. But Zahir chases after Bianchi, the driver of his target, who is in P9. Was Zahir keeping it cool, keeping it calm, keeping collected, and he'll know that he's got to just simply now put those laps in one by one, and the end goal will be to get close to and manage to find a pass on Bianchi in order to bring home the result he desires and take that P5 in the championship hunt. We're coming down in towards turn number 1. We've got a long way to go, and as we do, let's look a little bit further up the road on circuit to Arturo Mayorga, the BMR driver, with teammate Eric Guillory just behind. And these two running together. And in fact, Guillory, they're getting the better run out of turns 4 and 5. Now, will we see a swap between the two? I think they're going to stay as they are for now, but I think Guillory would be very eager to try and make a move if he can, if he feels that he's got the greater pace. And in fact, a lock up there for Mayorga as he came out of turn number 8. You could see what was the front right brake absolutely locking up and the tyre sliding with it. And that's not a good sign. That's normally the sign that there's going to be excess brake temperatures, and also tyre temperatures are now starting to increase. And again, a wobble there, a wobble into oversteer coming out of turn number 10. Mayorga does seem to be struggling at this point in the race as we look back from the rear of the lead of the BMR cars. And you can see Xavier Zainab, who is a lap down behind them, as they make their way up the hill. And Mayorga here, well, not exactly being followed in the footsteps of by Guillory, and I think these two might be changing things up. And in fact, Mayorga into the pit lane, so he's decided enough's enough, and Eric Guillory goes on. And well, Guillory can put the laps together here for the next couple and then decide to pit. He may just leap ahead of his teammate, and that would be a surprise, but that'd be a hard-earned one for certain, as the number 95 driver right now really does seem to have the upper hand in terms of the experience here in Brazil compared to his teammate. And well, Guillory has normally been chasing after what has been at Mayorga over the course of this season, but now things are being reversed, and well, Guillory absolutely keeping his head down and chasing after what could be one of his strongest results of the season, whereas Arturo Mayorga, it would seem, really struggling at the circuit, where he'd want to bring home those big points in order to go hunting after the top 10 of the Drivers' Championship right at the end of this campaign. As the drivers come in towards what is the end of the first third of this race. Well, this Interlagos circuit, also a circuit perhaps we didn't talk about too much earlier, which is also known for its very high altitude compared to most international racing circuits, whereby the circuit, I do believe, is the best part of 2 kilometres above sea level, although I could be mistaken in that statistic, to be fair. But I do know it is quite highly elevated by comparison with other circuits around the globe, and what that does mean is that the air is thinner, and in turn, when the air is thinner at a circuit, well, it means the engines have to work a little bit harder, driver in order to be able to deliver their power output as Eric Guillory comes into the pit. So it looks as though they're the team's drivers at BMR on what is an offset strategy. One goes on one lap and one goes on the other lap. And well, as we do see Gabriel Hop here chasing after Bianchi, it's all to change here in terms of those strategies as our drivers roar their way on around once again. And as they come charging around the circuit, well, it does look as though Hop now looking for a move on Bianchi as they make their way down the Retroposta straight in towards turn number 4. Can he find it? Not at the moment, but Hop is getting closer and closer as the two drivers push onwards, and they're making their way out on towards turn 6 and 7 very shortly. Well, no change for now, but it's not too long, I suspect, before we do see some more overtaking opportunities arise between these two drivers. And well, for Hop, he'll want to try and find his way on through, given the fact he's at a strategic disadvantage given what happened at the start of the race. Meanwhile, new fastest lap set by Elliot Court, just now at 16.065, so Court finding a bit more time out there, as meanwhile Eric Guillory has come out the pit lane. He's come out behind Leo Del Mar, so it looks like it's not gone right at all for Guillory in the pit lane. And as Guillory builds up the speed, well, Delmar's been able to find his way between the two BMR drivers, and Mayorga is 9 seconds ahead. So it's been an absolutely disastrous pit stop for Guillory. By comparison, an extra 7.5 seconds spent in the pit lane for Guillory compared to what was Mayorga, and that has been the changer to them. So now Guillory's got the hard work to do in chasing after his teammate. Losing the rear of the car, however, on cold tyres, and turn number 11 is not going to help him whatsoever. And the car just slides short of the exit barrier there on what was the outside of turn number 11. And Guillory, my goodness, now those tyres, he's going to have to nurse them in order to get any work out of them now, as those tyres will be absolutely screaming red hot, and when they're that hot, the grip level that is available to you is absolutely minimal. And the thing is, if you keep pushing those tyres, you make them even hotter after that when they become undrivable, and you have to come into the pits essentially because they just completely wear away. So Guillory now will need to nurse the car for what is at least 2 to 3 laps to try and get those tyre temperatures down. You can see the car once again already letting go because he's trying to carry all that speed into turn 1, and the car's tyres just simply saying no. And the number 95 driver doing very well there to stop the car from going around once again. So whilst he may have got it wrong at turn number 11, that car control is something to be applauded as he makes his way in towards turn 4. But looking back up to P5, Bianchi here ahead of Hop, and Zuhair is only 9/10 behind the pair of them. Well, these drivers now all together once more, and Zuhair working with Hop to close up to his rival in the championship. Well, we've got a long way to go, and Bianchi still keeping his head down and doing everything in his power here to try and prevent Hop from looking for a move. And you can see they're trying to break the toe as they head in towards turn at number 1, staying close to that inside wall, and Hop following him all the way with the bobs and weaves as we ride on board, looking back from the rear of the 17. And the Avanti Autosport car right now still giving it everything as they head down the Retroposta straight, and Hop now falling back a little bit, but in the draft he will close up little by little, but it will only be temporary as they head into turns 4 and 5 as they roll off the apex. Well, the gap will open up once again, given the natural concertina effect the corners produce in close battles such as this, and then we'll see Hop try to close up a bit more through turns 6 and 7, but Bianchi, the lead car, in no dirty air over the front of his car. You would imagine he'll have the happiest of the 3 Super Formula FF23 machines here, and therefore he'll just be able to pull away in this midfield section. It'll be towards the end of the lap and at the very start of the lap. We'll see Hop close up unless Bianchi makes a mistake, but mistakes have come for plenty here today so far, and could we see some more before this day is done and dusted. Well, of course, for Bianchi, given the fact he pitted as early as what was lap number 4, the number 17 driver will also be wary of the fact he needs to get these tyres home all the way to the end of the race in terms of the amount of wear they'll take. So therefore, the Italian driver will not want to push them too hard as he heads up towards turn number 1. We're going in towards that braking zone, and well, these 3, as they were from the previous lap, just up the road in terms of the order, yet to pick Nick Peterson and James Turnbull. They are the best part of 20 seconds ahead of Bianchi, Hop and Zuhair, and they're having their own little fight, and we believe this fight, when you adjust for strategy after their pit stops, this battle is essentially for what would be what would be at P7, and as Peterson makes his way out to turn 9 in towards turn number 10, well, he's doing very well to hold on to the place for now, as we do see here, looking back to turn 6 as Hop going around the outside of Bianchi through the double right, but Bianchi's still there. A little bit of dust on the circuit there, causing Hop to understeer slightly, and well, as he does so, over turn 8 to 9, there's contact between the 2 of them, and the 2 go into turn 9, and neither one comes out. The victor, and Shahi Zuhair walks away with it. The crack Kraken Racing driver sees the gap and makes his way through. And what a frustrating moment there for Hop and Bianchi. I think the two drivers both wanted to fight for the position into turn 9. Both felt as though they had the right to that inside line, but in the end, they both came onto careening paths, and that was the story as Zuhair makes one through. But let's take a look back at that incident, and I think the stewards will definitely be taking a look at that one, as here is the replay. And as we briefly lose our audio there, but the audio does come back. It was Hop versus what was Bianchi as they made the one through it, and Hop on that inside. Bianchi in the end on the outside needs turning at some point. And well, some would argue should Hop have backed out. Some would argue should Bianchi have just let the car roll wide. Well, there's many different perspectives on that one, but that's why the stewards have got all the camera angles and we've only got one or two as we now do go back to your live racing action. And as we do, ladies and gentlemen, will Zuhair, the main beneficiary from all of that drama at turn number 9 on the previous lap, and knowing now he's got a lot less pressure on him as he makes his way in towards the middle section of the circuit, up into P5, what is effectively P3, once Peterson and Turnbull's pit stops are complete, we believe. And now for Zuhair, all he'll need to do is get the car home, and that will be P5 in the Drivers' Championship confirmed, and with it, Kraken Racing's run-up status in the Drivers' Championship with it as well, as Nick Peterson's into the pit lane. That releases James Turnbull, and the number 83 driver goes on for another lap as he heads towards the halfway point of this race. 16th lap now being turned by the 83. Elliott Court yet to come in. The same for Adam Merchant, and our two leaders, in fact, the gap between them is now starting to close up a little bit. Adam Merchant have got the gap all the way out to what was the best part of 3 seconds, but the Squid Gang Racing driver is being reeled in little by little, albeit it's not going to upset his championship crown if he does end up finishing in P2 compared to what would be at P1, but the flip side of the coin would be, I think he would prefer to bring it on home with a victory here today, but we'll have to see. As meanwhile, Zuhair's just come in front of Peterson, and well, Nick Peterson has made up a huge amount of time in all this. That's Nick Peterson right behind Zuhair after the pit stop, so Peterson has jumped all the way to P5. In fairness, we have seen a few instances which will have aided Nick Peterson, but the flip side of the coin is his perseverance, and by going long and staying out of trouble, Nick Peterson has rewarded himself with P5 and the right potentially to battle for what would be 3rd place on the podium, because of the fact he's right behind Zuhair, and we're still waiting for Turnbull's pit stop. And well, speaking of James Turnbull, here he is as he goes on to lap 17, so he's going to go a little bit deeper into this race. He's not going to pit at the end of 16 and split this race into 2 halves. Instead, he's going to go long and have fresher tyres towards the end of this race, but a number of strategies here. But right now, the majority of the field have gone for the undercut, or at least pitting the first half of the race, and then a very limited number of drivers, just Merchant, Core and Turnbull, are going into the second half of the race and turning that second stint into a qualifying stint. And whilst he's making his way around, we need to come back and correct a statistic we mentioned earlier. The Interlagos circuit, or the Autodromo Jose Carlos Pache, as it's known in full, is a circuit that is up at high altitude, but it's not at 2 kilometers altitude. That did seem a little bit excessive, but it is at an average altitude of what is 2,579 feet. So there was a 2,000 in there, just the wrong units of measurement, and well, that's equating to approximately what is 790 meters altitude, and that does mean there being less air. The engines have to work harder, and our drivers have to work harder as well in order to get the best possible lap time out of the car. And as the number 83 driver of Turnbull comes towards the end of this lap, well, how long will he go as Elliott Court sets the fastest lap of the race? He is chasing after Merchant, and that is a 15.92 to the nearest 100. It's the first 15 we have seen in this race so far, and Court right now is turning up the wick. He's going all in, and I think he's heard in his ear the words hammer time, and he is laying down the hammer. Turnbull passes my commentary booth, does not come into the pits. He goes on for another lap, so therefore it seems though the top 3 out there, they're all trying to push this race as far as possible, feeling as though if they can get the tyres to go the distance and at least last them the best part of 20 plus laps, then they're going to have a very comfortable second stint in which to spring what will be the remainder of the race from. But as he comes up towards turn at number 10, Court right now will only be taking it 1 lap at a time, given the fact we've seen Court in a position like this previously, whereby he's been putting together an absolutely brilliant race for it only to unfold in tears at the worst possible moment, and he won't want that to happen ever again, in terms of the fact that he's had multiple results go astray this season, but hopefully not today. That'll be the plan, and they head onwards towards turn number 15. And will we see either of the top 2 come into the pits? No, they both stay out out there. Gap at a second. It's open slightly back up, but not by much as I head on to lap number 19. Meanwhile, will James Turnbull be coming into the pits? The orange and blue machine roaring its way out the final couple of corners to head towards the timing line. We're gapping 19 seconds over Zuhair, but it should be pointed out that Shahi Zuhair is closing on average at 3 to 4 attempts a lap on Turnbull. So longer Turnbull goes, the much more likely he's going to come out behind Zuhair and also Peterson. But the reverse of that will be he'll have the fresher tyres to go hunting with a very light car towards the end of the race. He'll have the least amount of fuel for the tyres, and therefore, in theory, he will be the one who can set the faster laps of the trio to go hunting after that final podium position. And when you do consider that over the course of this season, well, James Turnbull has not picked up a podium this season, and indeed in terms of the number of top fives he's picked up, he's had no top fives this season whatsoever, only top tens as well, where it'd be a huge opportunity to try and take what would be a top five and indeed a podium right at the end of the season. And well, meanwhile, if you're a Nick Peterson fan, his statistics stand at the fact that going into this race, and well, going into this round, we should say, in terms of his results, well, for Peterson, it has only been one top five and no podiums with it. So therefore, the American driver Suzuki Racing will be hoping that he can put his name into the top five once more, if not take his maiden podium of the season. And indeed, those efforts absolutely been expended to their maximum. But Zuhair is pulling away slightly. 3.5 seconds now is the gap, and he's creeping it out, is the Kraken Racing driver in the number 10, as he comes towards the end of what is his 19th turn of the circuit under race conditions in this feature race. As he comes up the rise, and well, we've still got quite a way to go over the course of the race distance, and we're still waiting on the strategy from our top three drivers in terms of how it will unfold. Definitely has been a season full of highlights and dramatic moments, but feel free to let us know in your respective chats, whether it be on YouTube or Twitch, what's been the highlight of your day so far here at Interlagos today. And well, as we do look to Adam Merchant, your race leader, I think his highlight has been in this feature race coming all the way from a P15 start to lead of the race in the opening lap, no questions asked whatsoever. And I don't think the Squid Game Racing driver would have quite believed it at first, and afterwards just got his head down and reset and gone, okay, now that I'm leading this race, it's time to just simply get on with the job and try and bring on home that win. But you can see it there as he comes towards the end of his 20th lap with Court behind. Elliott Court now 1.3 seconds back. The gap slightly opening up, and it would seem there the Blue Passport Motorsport driver, after closing, will deciding to back off a little bit, or perhaps deciding in the end it's not worth pushing himself too hard, given he wants to go even longer. And indeed, Merchant could have turned up the pace as well. As in fact, Adam Merchant's had a slow run for the Centre S, so much so that gap has been halved. It's almost been cut by 2/3. It's down now to 5 tenths. They make the way through turns 4 and 5, and the number 23 for Blue Passport Motorsport is absolutely roaring its way after his rival as he comes on through turns 6 and 7. And that profile photo, I do believe there, might be in a Formula Ford racer caught piloting it from the Thruxton circuit in the United Kingdom, the fastest circuit in the UK, and now available on the iRacing simulator platform. And well, we look forward to seeing plenty racing there. And would we ever see Super Formulas, SF23s, race around Thruxton? Well, I definitely think it's a fantasy that we would love to see it, no doubt about that. Albeit, I think they would only have to brake twice over the entirety of the lap, given how rapid the corners are and how much downforce there is on these FF23 Super Formula cars, as powered by Toyota or Honda engines, and the chassis being made by Dallara. But as they come towards the end of this lap, the gap now opening up again to 7 tenths they cross the timeline. In fact, 6 tenths there, so it is a closing gap, and this could be a sign of many a thing. It could be a sign that Merchant is perhaps now starting to hit a tyre cliff. It could be the sign that Court is now starting to push a little bit harder in order to become roaring on through and to try and take the victory. But of course, there's still the pit stop between these two. And you can see Merchant right now weaving a bit on the Retro Apostle straight. He'll get away with that so long as he doesn't do it once he does see his rival start to try and get alongside, then it becomes dangerous driving. But Merchant right now, well, the pressure is building here for the Squid Game Racing driver, and Court is trying to just push it a little bit further in order to try and make it back-to-back wins here today at the Brazilian circuit. But will he be able to do so? Whether he can or not, that will be the big question. But Court is there with him all the way so far, and after that brilliant win in race number 1, you would imagine that Court would be very eager to make it back-to-back here and do something he hasn't been able to do this season, which is to try and grab the perfect result of the day. But as they come out to turn 11 in towards 12, we're staying with this lead battle as we say hello to Shahi Zuhair in the YouTube chat, who says his highlight of the day has been Adam's drive through in the drive through from the back, I should say, as I stumble over my words in both races. And a great drive so far. Indeed, making me speechless there, no doubt about it, as they head up towards the timeline. On to lap number 23 they go. Still another 10 laps to turn. Still a pit stop to be made. And James Turnbull as well, still going under the radar here in P3. And the gap between him and Zuhair over the last couple of laps, the gap has continued to come down. It's now a gap of approximately 17.5 seconds. On the previous lap, it was 5/10 gain by Zuhair to Turnbull. And Turnbull decides it's time to come into the pit as he makes his way on down pit lane. And as he does so, hitting the limiter line, well, the sirens go there to indicate the car's coming. Where is Shahi Zuhair? Here he is, and he is at the best part of 4 seconds clear of Nick Peterson. So Zuhair, as long as he gets ahead of Turnbull come the end of this pit lane straight, you would imagine the Sri Lankan driver will be feeling very confident that the job has been done for P3, and that will be enough to take P5 with certainty in the championship. And as he comes on through, Turnbull yet to make his way past the pit limiter line. There he is. Where's Nick Peterson? When we look to the blimp camera, there is Peterson. You can see him there at the top of the screen. And well, they're practically going to be neck and neck here as they come onto the retro poster. This is brilliant racing opportunity for the two of them as they come on down, and as they do, it is too wide all the way in towards Turnbull. But Peterson has just got ahead on the course of strategy. Turnbull now has one ace up his sleeve that Peterson will need to deal with, and that is the fact that Turnbull has got tyres which only need to go the best part of 9 laps. Meanwhile, for what is Peterson, he's already been on his tyres for the best part of what has been, if my maths is correct, 8 to 9 laps. So therefore, Peterson's tyres will be feeling a bit of wear, and now he's got to try and break away as much as possible. Meanwhile, into the pits comes Elliot Court. Car up on the jacks. The Blue Passport Motorsport machine has been serviced, and he makes his way on out, and I suspect he's going to be out well clear of Shahi Zuhair. He's only making his way out of Jinsao corner right now, and Court already out of the pit lane and on towards what is the Retro Poster straight. So therefore, he'll return to P2, but that will put pressure on Adam Merchant to respond now as they make the way up towards what will be the final third of this race. The distance continues to wind on down, and as it does so, will mean, oh my goodness, what on earth is happening to James Turnbull? He's turned around there, and well, that is a surprise and not a welcome one to be sure, and that, I believe, is at Jinsao corner, and the race that was going so well for Turnbull is all crumbling apart here as he tries to get it turned, hits the tyre barrier slightly. That's going to damage the end plate at the front wing on the right hand side from the driver's perspective. And Turnbull's race has been completely turned upside down. But what exactly has triggered this? Well, we can get your replay, ladies and gentlemen, and here is the big explanation as to what exactly has happened for James Turnbull. Well, there's the off track, and in fact, that is afterwards. I think we can go a little bit earlier as to what happened to James Turnbull, and here it is in terms of what happened. It was through turn 11, putting too much power down, any expectations on those right-hand side tyres, and the car just going spinning into the inside grass, not to the outside, and that's what the 83 driver struggled to get back on board, because you're driving downhill on grass that offers no grip whatsoever to a slick tyre, a boiling hot slick at that, and it all went wrong as he tried to get things back together, and even so, all the dirt on the tyres, the wheel spin, a nasty moment for the 83 driver as we return to your live racing. As we do in Turnbull, well, in all this now down to P8, and knowing that he's got to try and pick up the pieces with not long to go, but he's got a long way in this race to try and get those tyres back in a comfortable spot. Well, that releases Nick Peterson for P4, and well, meanwhile, AJ Brenner, despite everything that's happened in this race, now finds himself back in P5, the number 80 driver, the privateer. I don't think he's going to quite believe his fortune, given how it's all gone from one extreme to the other in quick succession as he crosses the timeline and notches up what will be his 24th lap so far on leader. Meanwhile, Adam Merchant is almost towards the end of his 25th lap already. But keep in mind that Adam Merchant is the only driver who's yet to take his mandated pit stop, and therefore there's still more to go. But Gabriel Hopp having recently served his pit stop as work, should be pointed out. In fact, they've had to retire the car quite recently as well. So for Hopp, it's all gone from good to bad to disastrous. So it does mean now that Adam Merchant, with what is a 1.3 second gap, and in fact, whilst all this has been going on, I can confirm to you that Adam Merchant has taken his pit stop, and therefore our timing tower here inside our commentary booth, not quite showing the right statistics, but Adam Merchant has served his pit stop and he's come back out ahead of Elliot Court by 1.4 seconds. That gap staying at 1.4 seconds since they both returned to the racing, and Merchant having slightly fresher tyres compared to Court. However, it's not going to be too much of a distance, a difference, I should say, as we both know both of these drivers are absolute tyre merchants when it comes to making sure the tyres are absolutely saved in a pristine condition all the way over the distance, albeit you could say that Adam Merchant's tyre whispering skills are a little bit stronger than Court's, as we've seen where Court's perhaps got things wrong in feature races, whereas Merchant has not. That's not to belittle Court, who right now is absolutely chasing this result with eager-headedness, and well, as the Blue Passport Motorsport driver continues to try and close that gap down, we've put it back down to 1.2 seconds over the first 2 sectors of this lap, but again, it's all incremental gains, and the long distance awaits him as he comes out of Jinsao and onwards towards what will be 6 laps remaining. As they power their way on down the start-finish straight, we look to Leo Del Mar, who's got the company just in front of him, Arturo Mayorga, and behind he has got none other than the Rodent Junior car of Zaria Zainav, albeit Zainav is a lap down in P10, so therefore I don't think these two are going to trip over each other as teammates, and they won't want to fight too hard, given their own differences of lap, and Mayorga is very close there, as we continue to see Del Mar chasing after Arturo Mayorga, who'll be going hunting for what would be his only top 5 of the season. He's had 3 top 10s so far this season, but no top 5, so Mayorga here trying to make some magic happen right at the end, and we'll have to wait and see whether he can make that happen or not as the drivers come down for Jinsao corner, but anything's possible here, given we've only got 10 runners left in this race from 18 starters, a lot of retirements and some big names lost in this race, including Antonio Bianchi, Gabriel Hobb, also Cameron Dance, and also Philippe Sarkish and Nodevi Emil, I should say, and well, those drivers all fighting right up there inside the top 5 and all having it go wrong for them one way or the other in that very dramatic opening lap and the laps that followed. So therefore this race presenting a great opportunity for many a driver who wouldn't normally be expected to finish inside the top 10, let alone the top 5, to score some huge points here right at the end of the day, and none more so than Arturo Mayorga, who's trying to hold on to P6 here for BMR, and well, if he can do so, it would be an absolute brilliant end, and well, if he could find a way to get ahead of AJ Brenner, he'd take his first top 5 of the season, and that would put a big smile on his face, no question about it. But coming up the rise of all drivers having served their pit stops, and the BMR driver coming on through the double right-hander at turns 6 and 7. You can see Del Mar is closing there, and I get the feeling that tyre life might be starting to go against Mayorga over the distance, giving us one of the first drivers to pit. As he builds up the speed and continues to push on here into turn at number 10. We have had an incident further elsewhere for Eric Guillory, the other BMR car that's had to be towed to the pits quite recently, so therefore could that be another retirement? It would mean we've only got 9 runners left in this race, and Guillory was already a lap down after an early incident, and well, it was a spin in fact coming on through turn number 11 that set him on his course to be a lap down. We'll have to see as Mayorga here pulls away a little bit from Del Mar. Del Mar having a less of a good run at coming out of what's the Jinsao corner, and then up towards turn number 1 they go, and as they do, Mayorga here not having to worry about defending too hard, can just let the car gradually be cushioned into the corner under braking rather than having to stamp on the anchors. From them we look back up to the front, and Adam Merchant coming towards the end of lap 28 onto lap 29 he'll go shortly, and he's got a 2-second advantage. He's growing that advantage. It's 1.8 seconds to be a bit more precise, but he's gradually eking it out little by little. Fastest lap of the race was what, a 15.563 to Court's what was 16.17 on that last lap, so therefore that gap firmly moving the way of Adam Merchant. But could we see a response from Court on the next lap? Again, it keeps seesawing back and forth, or Adam Merchant otherwise will have full control of this all the way through to that checkered flag of the day as he comes out of turn 5 and up the hill. You can see up there the push to pass button being deployed, given the flashing green light above the driver's cockpit, and I think now Merchant digging in and going for fastest laps here to seal that bonus point and also make sure that Court's not going to close up in these closing stages of the race, albeit Court I think will have a bit of overtake button left, albeit he's got to be aware of the fact his tyres will just feel a little bit less life in them in terms of the amount of wear they've had, given the fact he did pit a couple of laps earlier compared to Merchant, but then again it's cutting fine hairs between these two. Meanwhile, battle on here for Witt's P6, and that's Leo Del Mar looking around the outside of Arturo Mayorga through the centre S, now to the inside of turn 2, and Del Mar there, well, he's got to give the space because Mayorga's not completely out of this battle yet as they make the way out of turn 3. You can see Del Mar coming across the road, but Mayorga is still on the inside as they come down the Retro Aposta. In towards turn 4 they go. Del Mar in the end takes the natural racing line and will take the place of P6 in a brilliant traditional move coming through turns 1, 2 and 3, and Arturo Mayorga huffed and puffed in terms of defending defending as much as he could, but in the end he was blown down by what was Delmar's absolutely bold pass. And well, the BMR driver now having to try and keep Xavier Zaynab behind him from unlapping himself, and well, he won't want Zaynab to get ahead because that will give Delmar plenty of time to try and run away with things in terms of trying to hold on to that P6 to the very end as the race distance continues to trickle away. We've only got what is another 3 laps left for our leaders, and our leaders are not too far behind this group, so really 2.5 laps left at this rate. And well, in terms of our leaders, Adam Merchant bringing that gap up to 2.1 seconds the last time we looked. The gap's now back down to 1.6 seconds, so I would suspect that Adam Merchant at this point may be trying to cool the car down a little bit, save himself up for another lap, or Elliot Court now will be putting in a push lap in order to try and go for fastest lap and get a strike back versus Elliot Court, well, versus Adam Merchant, I should say. Indeed, right now Elliot Court just absolutely on a mission to try and chase down this man, but it does not seem as though he's got enough here as they head onto lap number 31. 2 laps to go. New fastest lap of the race at 15.522 to Court's 15.585. So therefore, it does look as though these two absolutely throwing everything at it as there's a lockup there for Adam Merchant into turn 1. Neither driver is holding back as we see a slide there through the Curve du Sol for Court as he took a little bit too much apex curb on turn number 3, upsetting the car. These cars very sensitive to raised curbs, and well, the number 23 right now absolutely throwing everything at this. But I think unless we see a mistake for Merchant, I don't think Court is going to get close enough to try and adventure for a move in these late stages. But I could be wrong. I've been wrong before as he heads out to turn 6 and in towards 8. But as we look from them back towards this battle for P6, P7, while Arturo Mayorga still chasing after Leo Delmar. The gap now 6/10 as they clear turn 12, but as they roar the way up the hill, Delmar getting a slightly better exit, opens it up to 7/10 initially, while roaring on through and in towards the start-finish line. And they'll come past it here to go onto their penultimate lap. You can see Zaynab just sitting behind, not looking to try and threaten Mayorga too hard here, respecting the fact he is a lap down and therefore under blue flag conditions effectively. Will they continue their battle as meanwhile our leaders go onto their final tour of the circuit and the final lap of the season. The white flag waves. It's Adam Merchant who leads, and there's only 1 lap away between him and victory and his certain destiny of becoming the season itself drivers champion. And Elliot Court meanwhile just looking to try and make it back-to-back wins, but knowing this result or the victory will yield him P3 in the drivers championship in the absence of Jaden Callaway, who will become the runner-up, our season 11 champion. Well, as they head in towards turn number 4, the gap is 1.5 seconds and Merchant is still holding it on just for now. The gap does seem to be trickling down a little bit, but to be fair, it's one of the situations whereby I think for everything Court can do, Adam Merchant is responding saying that whatever you can do, I can do too. And these two have been exchanging lap times back and forth like broadsides and battleships, if you will, and nobody has scored a winning blow as of yet. But a winning blow will come shortly because Adam Merchant's only got another 2 major corners to go, and then a flat out run all the way to the checker flag as he makes his way through 11 into 12. He goes at Junsao, doesn't need a lock up here and doesn't have one, and as he makes way on through, well, the start of the season it was looking to be the Squid Gang racing at dominance that would run rampant, and it did. They took the team's championship crown at Silverstone, but only one of the team could take the drivers championship, and as he takes the checker flag, Adam Merchant is your drivers champion for season 12 of the League Zero Inca Salsa Formula Series, head of Elliot Court, who takes P2 for Blue Passport Motorsport, and with it third place in the championship. We will then see a further 28 seconds behind. Well, it has been a race that's been full of up and downs, but for Shahi Zahair, it is going to be a podium, and I do believe, unless I'm mistaken, his first podium of the season. And well, with that, the Sri Lankan driver will be ecstatic about that, and also the fact he has carried the hopes of Kraken Racing here today to bring them home P2 in the team's championship, and for Shahi Zahair on a personal level, P5 in the Drivers' Championship. Nick Peterson comes on home for P4 for Zucchi Racing in a deserved top 5 finish and a valiant P4, and then it will be AJ Brenner who makes his way out of the final major corner and what has been an absolutely topsy-turvy race. At one point it was all in the pits with broken wings and body parts everywhere for the team to reassemble, but they got it back out there and he comes on home P5 there on his debut round, and what an end to the day for AJ Brenner. Leo Delmar takes P6, another top 10 for the Rodent Junior driver, ahead of Arturo Mayorga, who takes one of his finest performances of the season for BMR, and it will be James Turnbull who finishes P8 a lap down down. And Xavier Zainab, last but not least of our remaining runners, P9 for Rodent Jr. in a race that definitely had a high rate of attrition, but still you had to hold on in order to bring home those points, and that's exactly what all of our finishing drivers have done. As meanwhile, Adam Merchant makes his way towards victory lane and heads towards the pit lane, or will he go onto the start-finish straight and do some donuts? Well, we will see as he makes way down, and in fact, I think it will be the donuts. He completes his celebratory cool-down lap, and the Squid Gang Racing driver will know that championship crown that has long eluded him has finally come his way, and what a drive of the season for Adam Merchant. Absolutely sensational, no doubt about it, for the Squid Game Racing driver. And we're in the end. Unfortunate that we didn't get to see Jaden Callaway battle him all the way to the end, but in the absence of Callaway, well, to be fair to Merchant, he did the hard work earlier on in the season when he had the better running results in the first couple of rounds versus Jaden. And then Jaden struck back in what was rounds 4 and 5 at Long Beach at Silverstone, but it was looking as though Merchant was the one who would have the points gradually coming his way, and here today, all he had to do was bring the car home, and doing exactly that, and a victory, well, that is the cherry on top, as we saw there Shahi Zaher joining in with some donuts, and we're doing so to celebrate P2 in the Team's Championship for Kraken Racing, and also P5 in the Drivers' Championship for the number 10 driver, in an absolutely brilliant effort, as they both celebrate their respective championship seasons coming to a close. And well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look at those race results, subject to any stewards' inquiries, and here they are. So in the end, a race full of drama, and indeed Interlagos is no stranger to it when it comes to season-ending rounds at the circuit. We saw in the feature race for round 6 of season 12 of the League Zero Inca Salsa Formula Series, brought to you on iRacing, Adam Merchant coming all the way from a P15 start to take the lead on the open lap and never look back to take victory for Squid Gang Racing, and with it seal his drivers' championship title for season 12, and also back-to-back teams championship titles for Squid Gang Racing. Elliot Court taking P2 for Blue Passport Motorsport. He kept up with Merchant all the way through the race. He put the pressure on, he mixed up the strategy, but it wasn't enough, and 1.5 seconds was the delta between the two of them in the end. But that result is enough for Blue Passport Motorsport's driver to take P3 in what was the Drivers' Championship, and also mean that they finished P4 in the Teams' Championship. Shahi Zaher taking his first podium of the season, the Kraken Racing driver there, a deserved P3, and avoided all the drama, and we're at P5 in the Drivers' Championship, and also guaranteed Kraken Race's run-up spot in the Team's Championship, with Nick Peterson taking P4 for Zucchi Racing. And for Peterson, well, what a result there to wrap up his championship campaign, which has only seen him up to this point take 1 top 5, and well, he's now made it 2 top 5s. AJ Brenner, P5 there, the privateer, in what was a challenging race, no doubt about it, but in the end surviving to take the final spot inside the top 5 ahead of Leo Delmar, the Rodent Jr. driver. Really has been one of the undersung stars of the season, the Frenchman, bringing home another top 10 and just missing out a top 5 spot, but he'll be happy with a P6. Arturo Mayorga, P7 there for BMR, the last of the lead lap finishers, and then both a lap down, James Turnbull and Rodent Jr.'s Xavier Zainav. There were 9 finishers, and we did see a late retirement, but he'll be classified as a finisher. Eric Guillory, who completed your top 10 there for BMR, and then our non-finishers, our retirees, included Gabriel Hopp, Antonio Bianchi, Jace Mayer, Cameron Dance, Gareth McAllister, Nadebi Emil, Philippe Sarkish, and Peter Reitinger, with a good number of the drivers all being involved in instance on the open lap in a dramatic start to this 32-lap race. But in the end, only it was 10 finishers on this one, and more, ladies and gentlemen, of those, 7 on the lead lap. But that does bring to a close this season all of our racing, and goodness me, what a season it has been, from our opener at the Circuit Spa Frankensteins all the way through to this final race here at the Interlagos circuit in Brazil. But of course that does mean we have the one big question of how did all of the championships end? Well, without further ado, let's show you, ladies and gentlemen, as these are the end of season championship standings after all shooting was done for the race at Interlagos as well. And as we can see, after 6 of 6 rounds in the Drivers' Championship for season 12, Adam Merchant was your champion with 166 points to the 146 of Jaden Callaway. Behind them, and finishing P3, none other than Elliot Court there. And, well, for Elliot Court, I think he'll be arguing to himself what could have been if he'd just had some stronger results earlier on in the season and hadn't had those errors that cost him those major results in the feature races, particularly in the last couple of rounds. Well, it's a big what-if question, but still, I would imagine the Blue Passport Motorsport driver will be feeling as though in season 13 that could be his season, as he kept the Squid Gang Racing drivers honest all the way. Philippe Sarkish finishing P4 there in what was, I think he'll feel, a frustrating end to his season, given the fact he could have finished in the top 3 if it weren't for that opening incident in the final race of today. But still a P4 there by 3 points over Shahi Zahair, who in the end almost stealing away P4 from the Brazilian driver. Zahair taking the final spot of the top 5 ahead of Antonio Bianchi, the Avanti Autosport driver being relegated to P6 after the altercation in our final race of the day. And then Leo Delmar finishing on a strong P7 ahead of Nick Peterson, with Cameron Dance and Raymond Aguilar rounding off your top 10. James Turnbull finished best rest P11 there on 43 points, managing to get himself into P11 right at the end there, ahead of Gabriel Hopp, with Michael Fairchild, Arturo Mayorga and Jace Mayer round off your top 15, with Mayorga and Mayer being joint on 36 points apiece. In P16, Gail Rolls falling into P16 after not being on the grid today, but still ahead of Ryan Tebow, with Richard Lai, Zaria Zainab and Christian Jasper round off your top 20. It was P21 to Gareth McAllister ahead of AJ Brenner, with Carl Deckard, Robert Nobles and then Alex Penn all in at P23. And then we could see P26 Christian Gritzko ahead of Jacob Bramley, with Eric Guillory matching him on 9 points. And then behind the BMR driver Frankie Brzezowski and Jeremy Barber and David Iazzi round off your top 30. Jeff Groff finished P32 ahead of Chase Moore on result countback, but both of them 2 points apiece. And there's Peter Reitinger and Nodebi M. Emil rounding off your Drivers' Championship standings. Coming to the Teams Championship, meanwhile, it's a huge congratulations to Squid Gang Racing, who brought on home the Teams Championship crown with a round to spare last time out at Silverstone, but formally crowned your champions now for Season 12 and successfully defending the title for Season 11 with 312 points to 195 of Kraken Racing. And, well, what a brilliant set of runners up there for Kraken Racing. In the end, coming from being behind Avanti Autosport and Blue Pass Motorsport, respectively, in order to make it happen in the final couple of rounds. Great teamwork between Philippe Sarkish and Shahi Zahair, no doubt about it. Avanti Autosport started off strong, but in the end had to settle for P3, but managed to fend off the charge of Blue Passport Motorsport, and then Zucchi Racing finishing the season strong with a top 5 finish there ahead of Rodent Jr. Rodent Jr. managed to hold on to their status of finishing ahead of the senior team of Rodent Racing, and then P8 went to Rabbit Racing ahead of BMR, with Ghost Squadra being our P10 finishers last but by no means least. So congratulations to all of our champions, ladies and gentlemen. But unfortunately, what it does mean is that now it is time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's race, and if you've enjoyed the entire season of League Zero for Season 12, and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to know more, perhaps you want to be on the grid to enjoy the Ultimate Super Formula SF23 series as it heads into Season 13 early next year. More on that very shortly, ladies and gentlemen. Well, for all that and more, we firstly recommend you check out the official League Zero website, and that may be found at www.leaguezero.net. It is the #1 place to go to for all things League Zero, whether it be the standings, the rules and regulations, or how you can be on the grid. But if you're more of a social person and you want to get right into the heart of all of the action at League Zero, then we do recommend you join the official Discord, where you can talk to the staff members, the organisers and all the drivers up and down the grid from the current and previous seasons, and the invite link is available there to the official League Zero Discord. We'd also like to take a moment to say a big thank you to our sponsors throughout this season, who have included Critical Video, MSR Performance Engineering and Team Goon Squad, and also a major thank you to our title sponsor for this season in our continued partnership with Inca Salsa. And well, if you are a fan of salsa and are looking to taste the very best, then look no further than Inca Salsa. Containing only the freshest ingredients, no gluten and no added sugar, just like the finest authentic salsa should. Once you've had a taste of the incredible family recipe salsa from Julio Espino, you will never want to taste any of the rest from the competition. To put yourself in pole position to enjoy the best salsa you will ever have, head to Inca Salsa's official website, that's incasalsa.com today. That web address once again, incasalsa.com. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we bring the curtain down on Season 12. But don't fret, because after Christmas, we will be back to the racing action at League Zero with Season 13 set to get underway as of Thursday, the 2nd of January, 2025. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, in only 2 weeks' time, the curtain will come up once again, and it will be another absolutely action-packed calendar of racing in Season 13. And will it be an opportunity for Adam Merchant to successfully defend his title in Season 13? Could we see Jaden Callaway come back to try and strike back and make it a run of what is Championship crowns from Season 11? And in the Teams Championship, can anybody find a way to bring down Squid Gang Racing? Well, those will all be questions that could be on the table for Season 13. But until then, we have been League Zero. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britney Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And we have been Season 12 of the League Zero Formula Formula Series. It's been an incredible season, ladies and gentlemen, and you guys and girls tuning in week after week have been absolutely incredible as an audience. But until next season, that's all from us for the remainder of 2024, and it leaves us here just to say thank you very much for watching, and remember, until next season, to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We look forward to seeing you in 2025, and most importantly, as always, ladies and gentlemen, remember, in these wintry conditions, to stay on track. Good night.